Revelle Balmain wasn't just a young woman chasing dreams, she was a rare blend of beauty, talent, and ambition. At 22 years old, she had already carved out a name for herself as a model, gracing magazine pages and capturing the attention of agencies. But her real passion lay in dancing, a craft she had honed since childhood. This passion had earned her an offer that could transform her career, a coveted spot on an international dance tour in Japan. Revelle was days away from leaving for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, excited to showcase her artistry on a global stage. Friends described her as radiant and full of life, exuding the kind of energy that made her dreams seem inevitable. But as fate would have it, Revelle never boarded that plane. Her sudden disappearance on the eve of this milestone turned what should have been a story of triumph into one of Sydney's most enduring tragedies. Behind Revelle's glamorous public image lay a carefully concealed secret. While she dazzled on runways and stages, she also worked as an escort, a reality she kept hidden from most of her friends and family. For Revelle, this was a means to an end, a way to finance her aspirations and maintain the independence she valued deeply. She managed this dual life with precision, confiding only in a trusted few. Those who knew her said she was diligent about setting boundaries, balancing her work with her creative pursuits. But this hidden side of her life added a layer of complexity to her story, one that would later overshadow her disappearance. When Revelle went missing, this aspect of her life became a lightning rod for speculation. It drew harsh judgment from the media and cast a long shadow over the investigation, with police and the public often focusing more on her profession than the person she was. It was a prejudiced narrative that her family has fought against to this day. November 5th, 1994 began like any other day for Revelle Balmain. She started her morning with a phone call to her mother, chatting excitedly about her upcoming trip to Japan. She had been meticulously preparing for the tour, even discussing plans to take her career to new heights upon her return. Revelle's schedule that day was busy but routine. She had several appointments, the last of which was with a client in Kingsford, a suburb in Sydney. Friends later recalled that she had plans to meet them that evening, a casual get-together she seemed to look forward to. As the sun set over Sydney, Revelle's movements became harder to trace. By 9 p.m., she was supposed to be home, but when she failed to return or contact anyone, her absence triggered immediate concern. Revelle was known for her punctuality, and her sudden silence felt deeply unsettling to those closest to her. The final confirmed sightings of Revelle place her in Kingsford that evening. She had visited a client in the area, completing what was expected to be her last appointment of the day. According to her agency, she made a routine call to report the end of the job, a safety protocol she followed religiously. What happened after that call remains one of the case's most haunting mysteries. Witnesses claimed to have seen Revelle walking along the quiet suburban streets, her striking appearance making her hard to miss, but somewhere along the way she vanished. Later, a friend she was meant to meet that night reported that Revelle never showed up. Calls to her phone went unanswered, and by the next morning, her belongings would be found scattered across Kingsford, as if marking the site of a struggle. But in those early hours, no one could have predicted just how dark this story would become. As the morning of November 6 dawned, the quiet streets of Kingsford became the center of a chilling scene. Revelle Balmain's personal belongings were discovered scattered across the suburb, items that told a story too unsettling to ignore. A single high-heeled shoe lay abandoned on the pavement, a cosmetic bag had been discarded nearby, and a diary was found, its pages filled with glimpses into her private thoughts and daily life. To those who knew her, this was a gut-wrenching sight. Revelle was known for her meticulous nature. She wouldn't have carelessly left her things behind. The arrangement of the items suggested something far more sinister, a struggle that may have ended in her abduction. Despite the grim implications, one crucial piece of evidence was missing: Revelle herself. No body, no clear signs of violence, and no definitive evidence left authorities grappling with a mystery that felt impossible to solve. Each day without answers deepened the agony for her family, while the absence of concrete proof left investigators at a standstill. From the very beginning, the investigation into Revelle's disappearance was fraught with missteps. Instead of treating her case with urgency, authorities appeared to fixate on her work as an escort, a bias that clouded their judgment. The narrative of just another missing sex worker took root, leading to the dismissal of critical leads and a lack of serious inquiry into her last known contacts. Officers allegedly failed to properly document witness statements, investigate potential suspects, or even secure the crime scene where her belongings were found. It wasn't until public outcry and media coverage intensified that the case began to receive the attention it deserved. But by then, precious time had been lost, and with it, the trail leading to her fate. Years later, Revelle's sister, Sulan Simpson, would openly criticize the initial investigation, calling it a travesty of justice. She lamented that Revelle's profession had overshadowed her humanity, reducing her to a stereotype rather than the vibrant young woman she was. Revelle's work as an escort introduced her to a world of secrecy, one populated by high-profile clients whose identities were shrouded in confidentiality. These were men of influence, businessmen, politicians, and other elites, many of whom had much to lose if their double lives were exposed. The idea that one of these clients might have harmed Revelle to protect their reputation was not far-fetched. The possibility of such powerful connections raised questions about whether pressure had been exerted to downplay her disappearance. Disturbingly, police reports from that time revealed a lack of thorough investigation into her client list, leaving a gaping hole in the case. Was one of these men responsible for silencing her? Or did her work inadvertently lead her into the orbit of someone dangerous, someone who could operate in the shadows without consequence? These questions, still unanswered, have only deepened the mystery surrounding her fate. Revelle's final known act was a phone call to her agency where she reported completing an appointment with a client in Kingsford. On the surface, this was routine. Revelle was meticulous about following protocol, always ensuring someone knew where she was. But this call was different. According to reports, her tone during the call was unusually tense. She sounded hurried, perhaps even nervous. While she didn't explicitly express fear, there was a palpable unease in her voice. Did Revelle sense that something was wrong? Was someone nearby, listening or watching as she made that call? This small but chilling detail remains one of the most haunting aspects of her case. It suggests that Revelle may have been aware of the danger she was in, yet unable to articulate it. What happened in the moments after she hung up remains one of the greatest mysteries of all. For Revelle Balmain's sister, Sulan Simpson, the pain of her disappearance was unbearable, but it wasn't enough to break her resolve. From the moment Revelle went missing, Sulan emerged as her most vocal advocate, refusing to let her sister's story fade into obscurity. In countless interviews, Sulan recounted her frustrations with the initial police investigation. Witness statements had been disregarded, potential suspects overlooked, and critical leads left unexamined. To Sulan, this was more than negligence, it was a betrayal of justice. Sulan's advocacy extended beyond the personal. She became a tireless campaigner for missing persons, working to ensure that cases like Revelle's would receive the attention they deserved. Her voice has kept Revelle's story alive in the public eye, forcing authorities and the media to confront the failures of the past. Even decades later, Sulan continues to push for answers, her determination a poignant reminder that Revelle was more than the labels placed upon her. She was a sister, a daughter, and a woman with dreams, and her story deserves an ending. One of the last people to see Revelle alive was a chauffeur who had driven her to a client in Kingsford on the night of her disappearance. On paper, his role seemed unremarkable, a professional hired to transport her safely. But as investigators dug deeper, inconsistencies in his account began to emerge. The chauffeur's statements about the evening were vague, shifting slightly with each retelling. He claimed to have dropped Revelle off without incident, but his inability or refusal to provide a clear timeline raised red flags. Despite this, police appeared hesitant to interrogate him thoroughly. Was the chauffeur merely forgetful, or was he deliberately withholding information? Could he have witnessed something he was too afraid or too complicit to admit? These questions have lingered for years, with no definitive answers. His role in the night's events remains one of the case's most perplexing threads. The streets of Kingsford were far from silent on the night of Revelle's disappearance. Several neighbors later reported hearing unusual noises and argument, followed by a woman's scream near the area where her belongings were found. These accounts, while chilling, were never thoroughly pursued. Police reportedly dismissed the statements as inconclusive, failing to document them properly or revisit the scene for further clues. This gap in the timeline has left an eerie void, one that haunts those who believe these sounds may have been Revelle's final moments. Why were these witnesses overlooked? Did their testimonies not align with the narrative authorities had constructed? The possibility that these crucial details were ignored is a grim reminder of how fragile the truth can become when evidence is neglected. Revelle's upcoming dance tour in Japan was more than a professional milestone. It was the culmination of years of hard work and determination. She had spoken of the opportunity with excitement and pride, meticulously preparing for what she hoped would be her big break. Friends described her as radiant in the days leading up to the tour, eager to embark on this new chapter of her life. She had plans, dreams, and a clear vision of her future. The idea that she would abandon all of it voluntarily was unfathomable to those who knew her best. This looming opportunity adds another layer of perplexity to her disappearance. Why would Revelle vanish just days before achieving her dream? Was her disappearance the result of someone trying to silence her, or was it an act of violence fueled by motives yet unknown? The unanswered questions surrounding her case continue to cast a shadow over what should have been a story of triumph and transformation. As the years passed, Revelle Balmain's case grew colder, but whispers of corruption within the investigation began to surface. Speculation swirled around the possibility that powerful figures linked to Sydney's escort industry had exerted pressure on authorities to bury certain leads. The escort world in the 1990s was a shadowy network, often intersecting with influential men who valued discretion above all else. Some believed that Revelle's disappearance threatened to expose secrets that these men were desperate to keep hidden. Could their connections have led to deliberate inaction or even the suppression of key evidence? While these allegations remain unproven, they cast a troubling shadow over the case. Critics argue that systemic biases and potential interference combined to derail the investigation, leaving justice for Revelle further out of reach. The idea that her life could be treated as expendable to protect others' reputations adds a dark and infuriating layer to an already haunting mystery. Despite the passage of time, Revelle's loved ones and advocates for justice have refused to give up hope. Though the case had officially gone cold, technological advancements in forensic science offered new possibilities. DNA analysis, once in its infancy, had become a powerful tool capable of uncovering truths hidden for decades. Sulan Simpson and others began campaigning for a renewed investigation, urging authorities to revisit old evidence. They believed that the items found in Kingsford Revelle's shoe, cosmetic bag, and diary might still hold valuable forensic clues. Even a single strand of hair or a faint fingerprint could provide the breakthrough they had long awaited. While investigators faced significant challenges in reviving a case this old, the hope that modern techniques could yield answers kept the fight for justice alive. For those who cared about Revelle, this hope was a lifeline, a reminder that the truth might still come to light. Years after the initial investigation, a fresh pair of eyes brought a new perspective to Revelle's case. A seasoned investigator, untainted by the biases of the past, reviewed the file with meticulous attention to detail. What he found was both shocking and infuriating. The investigator identified glaring missteps, including potential suspects who were never interrogated and witnesses whose statements were never followed up on. Evidence that could have been pivotal had been poorly handled or entirely overlooked. Among the most significant revelations was the discovery that certain items from the crime scene might still be viable for DNA testing. This new perspective reignited calls for accountability and action. It also raised a chilling question. If these errors had been avoided, could Revelle's case have been solved decades earlier? The fresh analysis offered hope, but also underscored the devastating cost of the mistakes made in those critical early days. Revelle Balmain's diary was more than just a record of her day-to-day life. It was a glimpse into her innermost thoughts and potentially her deepest fears. Found among her scattered belongings, the diary contained entries that hinted at troubling encounters and unresolved tensions. One particular entry stood out, a note referencing a man she described as dangerous. The cryptic wording left much to interpretation, but it raised unsettling questions. Who was this man? Was he a client, someone from her personal life, or perhaps a figure connected to her work in the escort industry? The diary also hinted at a growing unease in Revelle's life. While she appeared confident and poised to the outside world, these private writings suggested that she may have felt threatened or even stalked. Could these entries hold the key to understanding what happened to her? The unanswered questions posed by the diary remain one of the most haunting elements of the case. If Revelle had known she was in danger, why hadn't she confided in someone? Or had she tried only to be ignored? As investigators grappled with Revelle Balmain's disappearance, one question loomed large. Why was she targeted? Was it her work as an escort, placing her in dangerous proximity to clients who had something to hide? Or could the motive have been far more personal, rooted in jealousy, betrayal, or even revenge? One theory suggests that Revelle may have been the victim of someone seeking to silence her. Her position within Sydney's escort industry exposed her to a network of high-profile and secretive individuals, any one of whom might have seen her as a liability. Others, however, point to the possibility of a personal vendetta. Was there a jealous lover or an acquaintance who resented her growing success? Her cryptic diary entries hinted at a man she feared, but his identity remains a mystery. Theories of organized crime involvement also circulate, suggesting that her disappearance could have been a calculated act to send a chilling message. The true motive behind Revelle's vanishing act remains as elusive as the person or people responsible. Each theory adds a new layer to the chilling mystery, leaving investigators and her family to wonder if they'll ever find the truth. Despite the passing of years, Revelle Balmain's case remains an unsolved puzzle, with key pieces maddeningly missing. Her scattered belongings tell a story of violence, but without a body, no one can say for sure what happened to her. The lack of clear suspects and the absence of a confirmed motive have only deepened the mystery. Investigators have tried to piece together the fragments of evidence, but each lead seems to end in frustration. Witness statements are incomplete, timelines are hazy, and the critical hours surrounding her disappearance remain a black hole. What makes the case even more unsettling is the idea that the answers may have been within reach in those crucial early days. If the investigation had been handled differently, could Revelle's fate have been uncovered? Or is this a mystery destined to remain in the shadows, teasing at the edges of solvability but never fully coming into focus? For Sulan Simpson, the justice system's failure to deliver answers for her sister has been an unending source of pain. Over the years, she has spoken out against the investigation, criticizing the biases and prejudices that robbed Revelle of the attention and care her case deserved. The early dismissal of Revelle's disappearance as just another escort gone missing was more than a misstep, it was an injustice that set the tone for the entire investigation. Leads were ignored, witnesses were dismissed, and crucial evidence was mishandled. This systemic failure has left Sulan and her family carrying a heavy burden of grief and frustration. Even now, as advances in forensic science offer new hope, Sulan remains skeptical. She wonders if the system that failed her sister in the past can ever truly make amends. For her, justice for Revelle isn't just about solving the case, it's about holding those responsible for these failures accountable. As we close this chapter on Revelle Balmain's story, one thing is clear: the case is far from over. The haunting questions surrounding her disappearance refuse to fade, and the fragments of evidence continue to whisper of untold truths. Who silenced Revelle Balmain? Was it someone she trusted or a shadowy figure from her secretive work? What critical clues were missed in those early days? And could modern technology finally reveal the answers hidden in plain sight? Revelle's case is a stark reminder of how prejudice and corruption can derail justice, but it's also a testament to the enduring power of love and determination. Sulan Simpson's relentless fight to keep her sister's memory alive has sparked hope that the truth may one day emerge. Now we turn to you. Could there still be a breakthrough that brings justice for Revelle? What hidden clue or overlooked detail might unlock this decades-old mystery? Share your thoughts, because Revelle Balmain's story deserves an ending, and the search for truth is far from over.